You don't need to be rich to start investing, but you just need to be prepared. And if you can save up enough for a down payment, closing costs, and a strong reserve fund, you're not only qualified for better loans, but you'll be ready both physically and emotionally ready to handle anything that comes your way. Hi, I'm Jonna. I'm a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and mom who built long-term wealth through real estate, all while my husband and I balance full careers and family life. If you're earning a good income, saving for retirement, and doing all the right things, but still feel like your money isn't creating the freedom or security you want, and you want a great life, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Estate Investing for Life. I'm Jonna, and today we're going to tackle one of the most common questions that I hear from new investors. And spoiler alert, it has to do with money, because money is the foundation of why most people get involved in real estate investing in the first place. If everyone had plenty of it, enough of it, they may not be doing what we're talking about doing today. So the question is, how much money do I actually need to get started in real estate investing? It's a great question, and it's one that doesn't, unfortunately, have a one-size-fits-all answer. But by the end of today, we're going to have a clear understanding of what to expect for down payments, what additional costs to plan for, and how much savings you should have set aside before you buy that first property. We hear so much about no money down, and this is a way to really speak the truth about what's going on with what it takes to invest in real estate. You know, everywhere online, we hear stories of people saying they started with no money down, or that you can just jump into real estate with just a few $1,000s or partner with somebody. And while there are definitely creative ways to do that, like house hacking or partnering with others, the truth is that the most successful real estate investors start with a really solid foundation financially. And real estate can absolutely change your life, but it's not magic. It takes preparation, some capital, and a plan for managing risk. So let's take a look at what the numbers actually say, okay? According to several sources, including TurboTenant, Rocket Mortgage, and Realtor.com, typical down payments for investment properties range from about 15% to 30% of the purchase price. Now, that's quite a range. 15% is usually the minimum, and that's only if you have excellent credit, which, side note, if you already have excellent credit, you are so far ahead of the game, and this is the time to take advantage of that leverage, I'm telling you. And if you're working on your credit or need to figure out some, workarounds to possibly act while you're still building your credit, we've got some answers for that too that I can cover on a future episode. But excellent credit is amazing, and if you meet certain lender requirements, most investors end up putting around 20 to 25% down on their first property. I know when we first purchased our rental properties, we were using conventional financing, and we would typically put down 25%, which enabled us to get the best interest rate possible. So there was definitely a better rate for 25% versus that 20%. So there's just trade-offs there, depending on how much liquid funding source you have laying around. And so for context, what this looks like is just some simple math. On a $400,000 rental purchase, a 20% down payment is $80,000, and a 25% down payment is $100,000. Now that's before closing costs, inspections, and repairs. Realtor.com's latest report actually found that in late 2024, investors put down an average of 27.4% of the purchase price. Now that's higher than we were talking about, but I think a lot of the reason is because this also takes in cash purchases, and there's a number of valid reasons why people are doing all cash for rental properties. That's probably another episode, but a lot of instances are either someone has a lot of liquidated funds, they've sold a business, they've sold another investment property they need to funnel those funds into, or a lot of times there's an inheritance. There's a myriad of reasons. Or maybe that person is just very able and very, very risk adverse and doesn't want the possibility of a bank coming after a home. So that's a strong signal that the typical new investor isn't putting just a little tiny bit down. They're coming in with meaningful skin in the game. Now there's exceptions. There's FHA loans or VA loans for house hacking, for example. If you don't know, FHA loan is a government-backed loan program that allows someone to purchase a home, oftentimes they're first-time home buyers, and they're able to purchase a home for as little as, I think, 3.5% down. And then VA loans are loans specifically for U.S. military veterans, and they're able to take advantage of a great program with sometimes even 0% down. So sometimes you'll see people get involved in the investing game by using those loans and what's called house hacking, for example, where you can buy a small multifamily property and live in one unit and rent out the others with just like 3.5% down. It's pretty amazing. Or you can buy a single family home and rent out the other bedrooms in the house. And that is a really smart choice, especially if you're, live lightly and you're a first time home buyer. It can be an incredible resource for you. But those are considered owner occupied loans, not pure investment loans. So once you move out, that financing flexibility goes away. But the great thing is, if you make the purchase with those loans and you follow all the requirements for how long you need to live in the home, that loan stays with the property and can be a great advantage. Talk to a local lender about some of those advantages, and they can walk you through those different scenarios. So the thing that I have seen a lot in all of the new investors that I've worked with, and certainly that I talk to all the time, is that they often underestimate how much more they'll need for closing costs, repairs, and reserves. So let's talk about reserves first. Most lenders want to see that you have 3 to 6 months of mortgage payments, including taxes and insurance and any HOA dues, saved up in cash before they'll approve you for an investment loan. And that cushion protects both of you and the bank in case your rental sits vacant or a tenant misses a payment. And honestly, even if your lender didn't require it, you should. There's a way that you can sleep well at night as a new investor holding a rental property, and that's if you have money sitting in a bank or an account that is ready to go if you happen to have the worst case scenario and you have multiple months of vacancy. You can still pay that rent, and it's not going to come out of your personal mortgage or food money. It's priceless. And here's why. Real estate always comes with surprises: a water heater, a roof repair, or a tenant who leaves early. But if you have that financial buffer, you'll sleep better and you'll keep your investment long term and not have to sell in a pinch, which I've seen, unfortunately, as well. And it always happens. Even if you're doing everything right as a property manager or landlord, I'm telling you, things come up. Just yesterday, we dealt with a water heater that started burning up in a rental property, and tenants had no hot water, and we needed to shut that off as soon as possible. And we have a new water heater coming today, which of course is not fun to pay for. And unfortunately, that's a fact of life. But when you have a reserve, it can be pulled from there and you're good to go. And you're going to be so happy that you did that. Okay, so on top of your down payment and top of your reserves for your mortgage payments, you're also going to want to add in closing costs. So typically that's another 2 to 4% of the purchase price, and at least a few thousand for inspections, appraisals, and immediate maintenance items. Inspection, it depends on what part of the country you're in. It can range anywhere from $500 to $1,000 or more if you have a bunch of audit inspections that you want to conduct. And then appraisals costs usually between $500 and $1,000 right now for a single family. And then immediate maintenance items, even if that property is in good condition, I almost guarantee there's going to be a couple of things that you're going to want to address in order to have it all ready to go for a tenant to come live safely and without calling you and complaining the first week they're there. You want to make sure you've got good plumbing, all your electrical outlets are working, all that good stuff. So let's go back and assume we're buying that same $400,000 property. You might want a minimum of $100,000 to $120,000 between your down payment, your closing costs, and your reserves. And I know that number can sound intimidating, but it's also empowering because you need to know where your starting point is. You have a target to plan for. And I see investors, I've had it happen early in my real estate agent career, when investors that come, they get so excited, want to write an offer on a property, and they figure they'll figure out the financing. And then crunch time comes and they're crushed to find out that they don't have the down payment, or they don't have the credit, or they don't have those reserves ready to go in order to qualify for a loan. And that's a bummer. So you don't want to be in that spot. And we want to make good use of your time too as a new investor. You're not in it to waste your time. And I know you're not in it to waste everybody else's time and the seller's time. So this is the important foundation that we need to build to get those finances in order to be ready to roll. One thing I wanted to mention is a smart investor doesn't drain every dollar to get the deal done. So before you buy, you're also on top of those things, guys. You're going to want to have a personal emergency fund. And sometimes that's 3 to 6 months of living expenses completely separate from your rental reserves. But think of it like 2 safety nets, or think about like the double scenario. What about if you had a vacant property and you experienced a layoff, for example? You want to think of it like 2 safety nets. I'd rather we spend a few extra months or even a year working to build up these funds and go into a property confidently than have a shaky deal where you're one paycheck away from losing properties. And don't think it never happens. I saw that happen so much when the recession, the Great Recession, was here. And while I was fortunate at that time to be purchasing properties, the reason we were able to purchase so many properties for everyone we purchased was a seller that needed to liquidate their property because they could no longer afford the home. And a lot of those sellers were investors who bought on speculation, bought with these crazy loan programs with no money down, and they were upside down and they were hurting. So it happens. And I don't say that to scare you, but it's just really important to be prepared. So think of it like 2 safety nets, one for your family and one for your property. And if both are funded, you're investing from a position of strength instead of stress, and that is what you want. If you're wondering how to keep aside, how much to keep aside for ongoing property costs, a good rule of thumb is that operating expenses often run between 35 to 50% of your gross rent. So the ongoing property costs are another issue, guys, and that is what we're talking about when something goes out or you need to put some expenditure towards the property. That includes the maintenance, property management, general upkeep. So you always want to make sure your projected rent can handle those numbers and still leave you without being financially strapped. It's tough in this market, but it's doable. So the takeaway is you don't need to be rich to start investing, but you just need to be prepared. And if you can save up enough for a down payment, closing costs, and a strong reserve fund, you're not only qualified for better loans, but you'll be ready both physically and emotionally ready to handle anything that comes your way. And once you get started, there's nothing like that feeling of being prepared in a way that you're setting yourself for success with that first property. And then it's just a matter of learning the fundamentals, having them ingrained in you and rinse and repeating. That's when it gets really exciting. Once you have that foundation, your risk goes down dramatically. You'll feel confident saying yes to the right opportunity because you're not stretching yourself too thin. And if you're not there yet financially, that's okay. Use this time to save and learn and connect with others who are already investing. There are so many creative entry points like partnerships or live-in investments. And you just want to make sure if you're partnering that if you're not there financially, that's okay. Use this time to save, learn, connect with others who are already investing. There are creative entry points like partnerships and live-in investments that definitely make the numbers work, but just make sure you align with others that align with your goals and lifestyle, and that those opportunities align with your lifestyle. For instance, if you are determined that you are going into an Airbnb and you're going to self-manage, and yet you're also a very busy OR physician or surgeon, for example, you're going to really have to think hard about that and make sure that you can figure that out and how to align with your lifestyle. So think about it twice. It's not always just about the deal and the numbers. It's about making sure that you can handle it and enjoy your life in the process. So to recap, you're going to want to expect to put down on average 15 to 25% for your first investment property. You'll want to keep an additional 3 to 6 months of mortgage reserves for that property. You don't want to forget closing costs and your personal emergency fund. Most importantly, invest when you're financially ready, not just emotionally excited. It's so easy to get all excited. And it's kind of like when you're in a new relationship and you just want to go, go, go and do everything together and get married right away. But sometimes it's good to take a step back and make sure you're aligned in your goals, make sure you've got a common vision and are ready to step forward. Because when you prepare well, real estate becomes a long term wealth builder instead of a financial burden. And then the freedom is yours. If this episode resonated with you and you want more guidance on getting started, let's connect further. You can find me over at jonnaweber.com. And if you happen to live in Idaho, Idaho's trusted network for real estate investors is the Idaho Real Estate Investor Network. We've got a lot of great things going on there. You can find us at idahoreen.com. You'll find education, community, and real people right here in Idaho who can help you take that next confident step toward building your wealth for life. Thanks for joining me today. And until next time, keep learning, stay patient, and remember, building wealth through real estate starts with clarity and preparation. Have a great day, go and grow, and we'll catch you on the next episode.